My ever-faithful companion, Dark Magician!
Welcome along, fellow Dark Magician enthusiasts, to my guide on the brand new skill, Bane of Darkness. I'm going to provide a breakdown of the skill for those that are wanting to get into using this skill and aren't completely sure of the skill's restrictions and effects, as well as providing examples of cards you can run in the deck and some combos. Let's dive into the skill. Bane of Darkness can be used by Yami Yugi after completing a lifetime mission. It can also be used by Yu-Gi-Moto and Yu-Gi-Moto Dark Side of Dimensions by getting the skill from a legendary duelist or PvP reward drop. Or you can go to the card trader and take a chance with the skill lottery. Bane of Darkness has 3 effects, with the first effect applying conditions you need to follow for the entire duel, and 2 effects that can only be activated once per duel. Effect 1 states, you cannot special summon level 2 or higher monsters, except for level 6 or higher Dark Spellcaster monsters and Buster Blader monsters, but you can normal summon set Dark Magician and Buster Blader without tributing. Being able to normal summon Dark Magician without tributing is great for enabling many combos without the use of Magician's Rod, and is also on theme with Magician's Magic and Battle Chronicle, both being able to normal summon Dark Magician without tributing. The skill also lets you normal summon Buster Blader without tributing, but this isn't going to be of use in a Dark Magician deck unless you run multiple Buster Bladers. Moving on to the special summoning conditions, the skill locks your special summons to the following monsters. Any level 1 monster, monsters with Buster Blader in their name, level 6 or higher Dark Spellcasters, Xyz monsters, Link monsters. The level 2 or higher restriction that is in place allows the usage of Xyz and Link monsters as they don't have levels, but it will stop you from summoning cards like Draco Berserker of the Tenyi and Buster Dragon. This also prevents you from summoning Dark Magician Girl the Dragon Knight and Amulet Dragon, just like the other skills, so you'll want to avoid including them in your extra deck. Let's move on to the second effect. Effect 2 states, shuffle 1 card from your hand into the deck, reveal 1 Dark Magician in your hand, and then play 1 Buster Blader from your hand or deck to your field in face down defense position. Its battle position can be changed. This effect will allow you to get Buster Blader onto the field to make fusion summoning either Dark Cavalry or Dark Paladin much easier to achieve, and can even be useful in setting up materials for an Xyz summon. However, Dark Magician and 1 other card in your hand is necessary for this effect to be activated, and it will cause your hand to be reduced, which will limit the end board you'll be able to make. And for the third effect, Effect 3 states, during the turn that you normal summoned Dark Magician, add 1 Polymerization and 1 Diffusion Wave Motion from outside your deck to your hand. You do not have to control Dark Magician in order to activate this effect, and it doesn't even need to be on your field. As long as you successfully normal summoned Dark Magician and the summon was not negated, the skill will give you a free means of fusion summoning and means of hitting every single monster your opponent controls. With all the skill's effects now covered, let's move on to cards you can consider using in your deck. We'll start with the main deck first, as this will shape your playing style. As always, you're going to need 3 copies of Dark Magician, as you'll want as much access to it as possible, and it needs to get into your opening hand as much as possible. You're also going to need at least 1 copy of Buster Blader in your deck, so feel free to experiment with different numbers of copies. There's a few cards we can use to get to it. Apprentice Illusion Magician allows you to discard a card to special summon it, and then you can activate its effect when it's summoned to add Dark Magician from your deck to your hand. Dark Magical Circle can also add Dark Magician to your hand as well, but only if it's one of the 3 cards on top of your deck. Summoner's Art can also grab Dark Magician, as it lets you add any level 5 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hand. These cards focus on making Dark Magician your normal summon of choice, by granting you multiple ways to access it. If you're okay with giving up your normal summon, Magician's Rod can add any spell or trap that mentions Dark Magician from your deck to your hand. And Illusion Magic can pair well with Magician's Rod by being able to tribute a spellcaster monster and add 2 copies of Dark Magician from your deck to your hand. Since we're going to need to get more cards into our hand, Piercing the Darkness will let you draw a card anytime you normal or special summon a normal monster. With Dark Magician being a level 7 normal monster, this works well in our favor. On top of that, any battle that Dark Magician or a Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz monster made of Dark Magician is involved in, Piercing the Darkness can boost your monster's attack by the opponent's monster's attack and beat over them. Fusion Recovery can add back to your hand from your graveyard the polymerization the skill generates, as well as one monster that was used as fusion material, giving you more opportunities to fusion summon or use as fodder for discarding. Fusion Reserve can achieve the same results, but adds a named monster that is on the fusion monster you reveal from your deck to your hand instead and requires you to wait until the next turn to use it. Fusion Recycling Plan can also add to your hand a fusion material from your graveyard during each end phase. As for cards you'll want to discard, any card that can be banished from your graveyard for additional effects can be a huge advantage. Magician Navigation, Breakthrough Skill, Galaxy Cyclone, and Skill Prisoner are great choices as discard fodder, but all require you to wait a turn before you can use them. Kiteroid, however, can be used on the same turn it was discarded and provide immediate protection from near death. For interruptions, there's many different options you can explore. Crackdown, Mind Control, Warning Point, Book of Moon, Cosmic Cyclone, Mystical Space Typhoon, Compulsory Evacuation Device, Forbidden Chalice, Forbidden Lance, Necro Valley, and Summon Breaker are all various cards you can use to hinder your opponent through various means. Finally, for other various cards, Fusion Deployment can get Dark Magician onto the field, but you're only allowed to summon fusion monsters from your extra deck for the entire turn you activate the card. Magicalized Fusion can banish monsters from your graveyard to enable more fusion summoning. What about Dark Magician Girl? Well, it should only be included if you wish to activate the effect of the Dark Magicians when it's destroyed by battle or card effect. Other than that, Dark Magician Girl is not going to do much else. Next, we'll look at the extra deck, as any plays you want to work towards will revolve around these monsters. For Synchro monsters, the only one that can be summoned and is worth summoning is Enlightenment Paladin. Without a Magician Pendulum monster, you won't be able to use its Synchro Summon effect. However, Enlightenment Paladin can deal effect damage equal to half the original attack of any monster that is destroyed by battle. Getting this monster out will be quite the hassle, however, end up requiring you to either commit your normal summon to a level 1 tuner or run other cards that can special summon the level 1 tuner onto your field. For any hybrid Dark Magician Buster Blader decks, this is worth the inclusion. For fusion monsters, your choices of monsters to run are Dark Paladin, Dark Cavalry, the Dark Magicians, Quintet Magician, and Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. All 5 of these monsters are good choices for the deck. Dark Paladin and Dark Cavalry are the main highlights of this skill, and you'll want to always aim to summon one of the 2, whereas the Dark Magicians can help extend combos and grant you draws for more discarding. Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, can completely shut down any decks that are dependent on dragons, such as Rocket and Tachyon, by link summoning Imduck, the World Chalice Dragon, and then using it as fusion material. Quintet Magician, however, requires a lot of commitment and pre-planning. If the setup you're aiming for can't accommodate Quintet Magician, it can be excluded to avoid warping the build of your deck too much around its inclusion and keeping the deck to its best performance. For Xyz monsters, there's a number of great rank 7 options to choose from, such as number 11 Big Eye, Ebon Illusion Magician, Volo Furnages, the Darkest Dragon Doom Rider, and Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosac. If you're playing multiple copies of Apprentice Illusion Magician, Constello Ptolemy 7, Photon Strike Bouncer, and number 25 Force Focus can be good choices as well if you plan on summoning more than just one apprentice. Have a look at the list of rank 6 and rank 7 Xyz monsters there are and see what would fit your strategy. For Link monsters, Imduck can be great at getting Dark Magician off your field and ready for Eternal Soul, as well as being the dragon material you need for the Buster Blader fusion monster. The Nightmare monsters are all great as general staples for removing various cards, especially when combined with cards that steal your opponent's monsters, giving you free materials to work with. Decode Talker is also another good link monster you can use. There's lots of different link monsters you can experiment with, so see what works for you. What if you're looking for more of a Dark Magician Buster Blader hybrid deck? If that's a direction you're after, you're going to have to include a bunch of the Destruction Sword cards to make it work well, such as Buster Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman, Destruction Swordsman Fusion, Buster Blader the Destruction Swordmaster, Destruction Sword Memories, and Protector Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman. I personally have tried some of them and the boards end up feeling fairly weak, but these cards may or may not work for you, so it's best to experiment with different ratios and determine what you're going for. You might end up finding something consistently good that no one has really tried before. The skill is still in its infancy, so I encourage you to experiment and give it a shot. Now we move on to the combos. There aren't going to be many combos for this skill as it's unfortunately limited by the skill itself, but we can work with it as best as possible. For demonstration purposes, I'll perform these combos on Dueling Book as it's much easier to set up examples on Dueling Book rather than Duel Links itself. Let's say we open with Dark Magician, Apprentice Illusion Magician, Fusion Recovery, and a random card, with only one Buster Blader in the deck. First, we activate the skill's second effect, and shuffle back the random card. This will get our single copy of Buster Blader onto the field. Then, normal summon Dark Magician and activate the skill's third effect for 2 free cards. Next, use Polymerization to fusion summon the Dark Magicians, by using Dark Magician and Apprentice Illusion Magician. After that, use Fusion Recovery to grab both the Dark Magician and Polymerization you just used. Now you can activate the Dark Magician's trigger effect to draw a card. Now use Polymerization again and fusion summon either Dark Cavalry or Dark Paladin. Now you've got a monster to generate more draws and a targeting or spell negation. Unfortunately, because a card had to be shuffled into the deck earlier, we only have 1 card for discard fodder. It may be 2 depending on what you just drew. This board isn't as strong as it looks and can be easily dismantled if your opponent knows how to not trigger any of your monster's effects. Let's change our previous hand, swapping the Apprentice Illusion Magician for a Piercing the Darkness instead. We'll start this combo off the same as the previous one by activating the skill's second effect and shuffling back the random card. Once Buster Blader is on the field, activate Piercing the Darkness and then normal summon Dark Magician. Use Piercing the Darkness's trigger effect to draw yourself a card. Then activate the skill's third effect for 2 free cards. Now activate Polymerization and fusion summon either Dark Paladin or Dark Cavalry. Finally, use Fusion Recovery to grab Polymerization and either of the fusion materials. Now you have a monster on the field with a negation effect and at least 3 cards for discard fodder. Still, this board is not as great as it could be, since your opponent can break it by playing other cards that can get around your monster. How about we change this up? Let's change Piercing the Darkness and Fusion Recovery into Compulsory Evacuation Device and Warning Point. Now we follow the previous combo, playing our cards just like before, up to the points where we'd use Piercing the Darkness and Fusion Recovery. Instead, we'll finish our turn by setting our 2 trap cards, just after fusion summoning Dark Cavalry or Dark Paladin. Instantly with 2 extra interruptions, we now have more ways to delay our opponent by providing us with more opportunities for well-timed interruptions. In terms of card combinations, Dark Cavalry paired with Piercing the Darkness and Diffusion Wave Motion allows us to attack the opponent's heaviest hitter first and then deal with the rest of the opponent's monsters without having to worry about any effects activating when the monster is destroyed in battle. For Dark Paladin, a Forbidden Lance combined with Skilled Prisoner used on Dark Paladin will negate any monster effect that targets it at activation and will make Dark Paladin immune to any spells or traps, with the drawback of having its attack lowered and making it easier to beat over. If you're willing to give up your spell and trap zone, Eternal Soul combined with Dark Magical Circle and Piercing the Darkness will not only let you banish a card every turn when you summon Dark Magician, but you will draw a card every turn as well. And now for the final part of the video. How strong is this skill? Well, it can climb to King of Games, as a few people including myself have done it already. The skill's biggest downside is how many cards you're losing in order to set up your field, as sometimes you will end up finishing your turn with only a single monster on the field and a couple of cards in your hand. paired with your opponent's disruptions, it leaves a lot to be desired. It has great OTK potential, however. Diffusion wave motion allowing you to use a singular monster to smash every single monster your opponent controls, combined with either Piercing the Darkness's attack declaration effect or Apprentice Illusion Magician's damage calculation effect, makes for an easy way to finish off your opponent. Despite the skill's flaws, it's a massive improvement on the old Dark Paladin skill that forced your deck to contain only singular copies of cards unless they were Dark Spellcaster monsters, and Dark Paladin was the only fusion monster you could use. Overall, without this skill, Dark Paladin would have been one of the Dark Magician fusions that could only be summoned out by including the Eye of Timaeus or Buster Blader into your regular Dark Magician deck of choice, and hard drawing the necessary cards. But now, Dark Paladin can be easily summoned on turn 1, finally finding its place where it can be consistently played. And most importantly, this skill is fun to play. I encourage you to give this skill a try and see what you think of it. The skill, as I said before, is still in its early days, so there will be plenty more to learn about the skill and what can synergize with it well. Who knows? Someone might find a combo that works extremely well and extremely consistently. Only time will tell. That being said, thank you very much for watching my guide on Bane of Darkness. I'll see you all next time.